Hey guys and gals, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about mangrove snapper, and it's not mango like some people say. I see that a lot, mango snapper. It's mangrove. They hang around the mangrove bushes, and they like the structure like oil rigs and rocks. It's a gray snapper, mangrove snapper. We're going to talk about catching them out of Grand Isle, Louisiana. My favorite, everybody's been asking me, where's your favorite spots? Because I used to catch a lot of mangrove pretty close. And so I'm gonna show some areas, some ideas where to fish. The reels I use, the hooks, everything's on here. We like to use the heavy stuff. Some people throw a little lighter line out there with maybe just a jig and a croaker. Shrimp, croaker, and pogies is the only three baits that I would use this time of year. The pogies are going to catch bigger fish, going to catch some sharks too, because it's real flashy and shiny, and they see it from a long ways. It'll catch some lemon fish. But the croaker's probably the best thing. The shrimp is the most appetizing, but a lot of smaller fish will eat the shrimp. If you use shrimp, you got to get really big ones, okay? We used this map during the state waters snapper season years ago, when we could catch them in the state waters and not in the federal waters. But it shows all the platforms, and if you click on a dot, you can enlarge it. Let me show you the website first, because you need to go here and play with this if you want to learn a lot of this stuff. That's the website, ldwf.maps.arcgis.com. Hard to find without knowing the website, very hard to find on Google. But I did some research and I found it for y'all from years ago. But it's really interactive. You know, if you want to do the mangrove, we're talking about mangrove snapper. A lot of these rigs are really good close in out of Grand Isle. So we're going to enlarge it like that and just kind of show you how to use it, and you can go on your own. And then to find the blocks that I'm going to talk about, all you have to do is tap on that dot, and it's going to show you the block. Like we tap on that block, and then it shows you that block. So that's 22, Grand Isle 21. That's Grand Isle 21. Block ID at the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the rigs that I like to fish, and then you just go poking on this map and find them, and then you know which ones I like to fish. So check it out. It's an awesome map, and it does show you state and federal waters. So don't forget that website. All right. And I'm just including this in the video. I'm gonna talk about mangrove snapper fishing. Let me just enlarge it right here again. I might as well go ahead and tell you, because I'm gonna talk to you about it later. I like to fish the 22 block. Grand Isle 22, right out of Buggies, coming out of Pass. And then I like to come out of Barataria Pass and go straight this direction towards Venice, and fish the West Delta 32 block. It has like 5 rigs in it. It's somewhere in this area right here. There's about 5 rigs in it, and it's in about 60 feet of water. 22's in about 60 feet of water. You can get your limited red snapper there too. They probably won't be all big ones, but lots of mangroves there. And check this map out. It's really, really interactive. And if you want to go way offshore, of course, you can do that too. We caught some really big ones at 105 here too, towards Venice. You just touch on them and you can find which ones I'm talking about, but more in this area. But that's like 32 miles from Barataria Pass. West Delta's 32 block is only 18 miles. And if you go out of Buggies, the 22 rigs in the block 22 are only about 8-9 miles. So and of course I'm gonna talk also about this sulfur mine reef, which is about right here. That's not a rig anymore, so they don't show it, but it's about right here. I think it's 7 miles offshore, about right there. And I'll show you a picture of that and talk about that. But that is in about 55 feet of water. This is the reel I use. It's a must for me to have a counter on there, because once you find a fish, you go back to that same depth and you keep on catching them quickly and easily. And as you can see, that it's kind of worn out. I hadn't used it in a while, but it's a Dakota 700 LC. That's about the right size. I have one that's a little smaller, but this is our favorite one, Jay's favorite one. So just wanted to show you. It's a Shimano. Gotta have the counter. Gotta keep it lubed up good. And I'll talk about the fluoro here in a second versus the braid. All right, I like to use, of course we use circle hooks, but I like to use this snapper tie and go through here, lay it against the, go 6 times around, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then come back, get the end of the 5-foot fluorocarbon leader and come back through that same hole and pull it all the way through. And then that's what you got right there. No cinch knot on that. That's not gonna break. And it's gonna hang like this. When it's in the water for the snapper, it's gonna hang perfectly straight. And then I tie the other end, of course, to the swivel. You can use a bigger one for bigger fish and a smaller one if you're fishing for smaller mangrove. I like to use the black one. It doesn't show as much, but you see the fluorocarbon leader. I like to use about 4 foot to 5 foot, depending on how finicky they are. The longer they are, the more they'll steal your bait. It's basically like a Carolina rig that we're going to be dropping down instead of casting. And then you connect the leader with the swivel to the main line, which I'm using about 60 to 80 pound main line. And then we use depending on the current, we use the weight that allows us to go pretty much straight down. You may have to go with 6 ounces. You might have to go with 8 ounces, 10 ounces, have every weight on board. This is about the heaviest I usually have to go with, but the slip weight works the best for me. And we just drop it straight down. We don't do a lot of free lining because a lot of current, it's a lot more work. This is easy peasy. Hey, and a lot of y'all is gonna want to use braid. I can tell you I had some really expensive braid, green, the perfect color, and it caught fish, of course. If you got that fluorocarbon leader, it makes the difference. 4 or 5 foot fluorocarbon leader, and I'm using 40-pound test most of the time. You can get sometimes a better bite on 20, 30-pound fluorocarbon leader, but you get broken off very easy with that. So, you know, the braid, yes, but the mono always on my boat outfishes the braid. I don't know why. I guess they can see it, even though you have the fluorocarbon leader, they can see it. It's a very keen fish, is that mangrove snapper. Nothing like a red snapper or anything else out there, like a redfish. Those fish, you can catch them on anything, wire leader, but not the mangrove. You gotta try to hide the hook. You gotta make the bait look like he's down there free. And sometimes they still difficult to catch them. And sometimes they'll eat anything you drop down, pretty much. If you can't get live bait, of course you can fish them with dead pogies. It's a great bait to fish them with. You gotta hide the hook in the pogie though, as best as you can. And these circle hooks, you can't set the hook on them. You gotta let them hook themselves. So you gotta have a lot of patience or you'll miss them. And they'll steal the croakers like crazy. I mean, if they finicky, you may have to go to a 2-out hook. Or maybe in a 1-out circle hook, but make sure it's thick enough where they won't straighten the hook. And I do the croakers through the mouth. I open the mouth and go through the top of their nostril. And that's how I hook the croakers. The pogies, I do the same thing through the head, open their mouth, go through the top of the head. And on the shrimp, I like to go through the back of the tail and just come out the middle of the shrimp. But the shrimp need to be big. You're not going to catch anything worthy of limit size on small shrimp. They need to be some like 20 count, like the big ones, like Bridgeside has sometimes. Of course, you're going to use the counter to get down, and we like to start about 25, 30 feet and see if we get a bite. If we get a bite there, we got the counter, we know we'll go back to 25, 30 feet. But the main thing I want to give you to catch these big mangroves, you got to have the boat clear. If you got people, you got to have a walkway, because when you set the hook on a 10-pounder, if you stay right here, he's going to break you off. So as soon as you feel him pull all the way down and he's on, you don't need a reel. You run straight back till you get to here. And then you start to reel and retrieve him. You already moved him 8 or 10 feet away from the rig. That's how you catch the wolves. I call them the wolves, the big ones, okay? If they don't bite at 25 feet, we go to 35 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. Jay used to catch them at 50 feet all the time. So we're not trying to chum them up like a lot of people do, because you get a lot of sharks and a lot of undesirable fish when you're chumming. So that's my big tip is, when you get that bite, you run straight to the back. Other people, you have 2 lanes. You got one on that side and one that side. If you got people fishing here, you're going to get broken off because you got to stop and you can't get around them. That's my biggest tip. Of course, you would want the bow of the boat to be as close to the rig as possible without hitting it. That's where most of the big mangroves are going to hang out, is going to be right close to the rig. So you want the bow of the boat to be close as the rig as possible. So make sure you understand. I'm trying to get all the details I can for you. If I was on the water, I could show you better, but I'm not in Louisiana and the rigs are not close over here. So I'm doing the best I can to give you detailed information of how I fish them and how we were successful in catching those big wolves. Some anglers say, tighten the drag all the way down. I think that the drag needs to be tight, but not that tight. Not where you have no drag at all. According to your fluorocarbon leader, if you're using 40 pound and you got an 80 pound main line, you tighten it where you can barely pull it out. But it's got to come out. If it don't come out, you're going to break that 40 pound leader. And if it just touches that rig, it's going to break. So you want to have a little bit of drag set on there. That's very, very important, is setting your drag before you drop it down. Very important. Another thing that's real important is making sure your leader line does not have any frays on it. If you have a fray from the last time you had a bite and you drop it down there and you hook one of those 10-pounders, he's going to break it off even if you don't touch the rig. So check your line for frays every time you come up. And if you got to put a new leader on, you cut a new 4 or 5 foot fluorocarbon leader and you retie it. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Hey, a lot of y'all know already how to catch them mangroves. All I'm doing is trying to give some tips to the guys that ask me. A lot of guys ask me, how do I catch them? And there's a bunch of ways to do it, of course. You can throw chum on the top of the water and throw a little croak out there with a 25-pound test, a spinning reel, and catch them on, 5, 6 feet from the top with a croaker, with a live croaker. There's a bunch of ways to do it. This is just our way. It's easier, and we believe the heavier equipment is easier for green peas. When I was a green pea, that's how I started. I went to free lining, and then I came back to doing it like a green pea because I got older, and the heavy equipment can get them away from that rig. Okay, so I'm trying to think of everything that I do to help you get those wolves. Remember, that shrimp is going to get the smaller fish. The croaker's going to get the medium and big ones. And if you use live pogies, some bigger live pogies, it's going to be the biggest mangrove that'll come out of the rig and get it. But sharks and jacks and everything else comes after them pogies. So just keep that in mind. And another thing is, be careful. Check the weather before you go, especially in a bay boat. Those seas can come up in this time of the year with thunderstorms and rock your world and make you never want to go back. So check the thunderstorms before you go. And of course, 5-mile-an-hour winds or less is what you always look for, that flat day to go. And you can use your trolling motor, your spot lock, up current, down current, but I still recommend tying up down current at first until you get used to doing this. Much safer. Get your rig hook and hook it on the rig and move around the rig from one corner to the next. They like to stay where the most pipes are. I've caught on the side of the rig, side current, not down current, not up current, but side current before. So you try it all. If you think it's a good rig, you see them. You can see them a lot of times. If the water's clear enough with your polarized glasses, you can see the mangrove swimming down there. And be ready for a lemon fish too. If you get hooked on a lemon fish, if you see a lot of times it's sharks, but if you get a lemon fish, you got to unhook from the rig and back off or he's going to break you off. So keep all those things in mind. We caught a lot of big lemon fish while we were mangrove fishing. I want to tell you all about the sulfur mines. A lot is the best kept secret if you want activity. If you got some heavy equipment and you want some activity close in, it's about 6 or 7 miles out of Barataria Pass, a little bit towards the west, southwest, about 6 miles, and I put the coordinates to my favorite spot on there where they have a bunch of concrete parts of the bridge. Sometimes it moves 6 or 7 feet tall of concrete down there. And there's some big old mangroves there, but there's a lot of cobia, lemon fish. But there's a lot of sharks too. So if you get the sharks start active, you probably have to leave. You might catch a few mangroves, then the sharks take over. So that's the only bad thing about that reef. But it's one of the largest reefs in the world. It's the Sulfur Mine Reef, and everybody's forgotten about it. And I know Tony and Ann Taylor, that was one of their favorite places. So every time I think about that, I think about Annie and Tony. They told me about it and gave me the coordinates, and I caught some nice fish there, some beautiful lemon fish and some beautiful mangroves, but it's full of redfish too. Sometimes you can go there and the bull reds just tell you, and sometimes you keep a reds. Check, make sure you're not in federal waters. I think it's in state waters. I think you can keep the reds, but just make sure I'm right about that. If you want to catch some bull reds, easy. It's a big reef, but the GPS coordinates I gave you has a lot of structure, and you just use your GPS to troll around there, and you'll see all the different hills and valleys. And you just move around slow, and if the current's not too strong, you're gonna get some fish on quick. So we'll see you next time. If you have any questions, I try to put a lot of information in here about Grand Isle, fishing those close-in rigs, and those sulfur mines is a close. You're probably gonna need the spot lock, trolling motor. I don't know if I would anchor right there, but on a calm day, you can stay in one spot right there and move around a little bit, and man, you can get on some heavy action and wear your arms out. So if you have any questions, comments, please like it, subscribe, tell your friends about Tommy V's channel. We'll try to give you all the information about Grand Isle that I can, even though I'm not there. We'll see you next time.